Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskaram. Welcome to yet another lecture titled Yakshaganam and Kuchipudi Natya. In the last lecture, we have seen that during the rule of the Kakatiyas and the Chalukyas, many temples of Shiva were constructed like the Srikalahasti, Sri Shailam, Mahakaleshwaram, etc. And all these temples were amidst deep forests which had a huge number of wild animals. The forest tribes of Chenchus, Kuravas and Jakkula were the people who helped the pilgrims cross the forest safe, visit the temple and then get them back to the other edge of the forest so that they can go back home safe. Now, when they were passing through the forests, the pilgrims, when they had to stay for a night, to reach the temple, these tribal men and women used to entertain the pilgrims with the songs and dances on Shiva, and they had a certain unstructured format. We shouldn't say a structured format, but a certain format in which they used to do the roles and they used to sing the songs, which were very interesting. Scholars like Shri S.V. Joga Rao Garu and Shri Pappu Venugopal Rao Garu, who have worked extensively on the Yakshagana Prakriya, believe that the Yakshagana, which means Yaksha plus Ganam, which is the song of the Yakshas, has come from the Jakkula community. Jakkula is a corrupted word for Yakshula. Jakkini is a corrupted word for Yakshini. So Yakshaganam, which is the song of the Yakshas, is nothing but a very classical way of putting forward the Jakkula Ganam. Jakkula, as we understood, is a tribal community. Of course, there are a certain section of scholars who believe that the Yakshaganam is from the Kuravanji community, which is the Kuravas. Whatever may be the opinion, it is for sure that the Yakshaganam has its roots from the tribal dance, music and theatre traditions. Of course, there was not sort of an actual formatic structure that the Samskrita Yakshaganas has, but there is definitely a lot of influence that the actors and the lyricists have taken from what the Jakkula people have sang and from the tribal communities and their storytelling method. Yakshaganam is a genre that has attained prominence in the south of India. You see, many dance drama traditions in the south of India follow the format of Yakshaganam. Earlier Yakshaganams were written in Sanskritam, and later we see, as discussed in the last lecture, their emergence in the regional languages of, say, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, etc. Yakshaganam is a literary mode and a performance genre. It is that genre where you sing the lores of the god and perform them in a way which is very entertaining to the audience and of course very educating to the audience. And Yakshagana means an art by which events that have happened elsewhere are revealed. A certain story happens elsewhere that you narrate it through your storytelling. That is where Yakshaganam genre is actually adept with. We see the very first Samskrita Yakshagana mention in Palkuriki Somanatha's Panditaradhya Charitra that belongs to 13th century CE. Before that, we see Yakshaganams and their unstructured formats in the tribal communities and the folk communities, which were very prevalent and very common. But for the very first time, a Samskrita Yakshagana in a very structured format with the influence from the tribal and the folk versions, we see only in the 13th century from a text called Panditaradhya Charitra. And another clear mention about Yakshaganam in the earlier years was in the text that belongs to 14th century by Srinatha, whose work is titled as Kridabhiramam. In this text, Srinatha mentions about a dancer called as Jakkula Purandhari. And we also see the connection between Jakkula and Yakshagana in this 14th century text. Many Kuchipudi Bhagavatams were also performed, or rather the Bhagavatulu, until the Bhama Kalapam has come into picture as an original text for the Kuchipudi Melam. They performed many Samskrita Yakshaganas on Shiva and Vishnu also. We'll discuss that when we see the Siddhendra Yogi Charitra. Now, the earliest written Yakshaganam in Telugu literature is by Proluganti Chennasuri, and the name of the text is Saubhari Charitam, and it belongs to 15th century. But unfortunately, this text is not available, and we come to know that a certain text by this Chennayasuri is written through the texts that have followed that, where they have mentioned that earlier a Telugu Yakshaganam was written by Chennasuri. But this entire text we have lost over a period of time. Now, coming to the technicalities of Yakshaganam, there are three types of Yakshaganams. One is Shravya, another is Drishya, the next one is Shravya and Drishya. What are Shravya, Drishya and Shravya, Drishya? Shravya is where you only listen to the lores of the gods. It is only by singing, so that you only hear it. And what is Drishya? You dance to the lores of the gods. And what is Shravya Drishya? Where the singing and the dancing happens at the same time. So, that is where Shravya Drishya come into picture. Now tell me, to which type the Kuchipudi Yakshagana belongs to? Yes, you are right. It is Shravya Drishya mode of Yakshagana. And there are three stages in the development of the Yakshagana. It is the recitational stage, is the first stage, where only one person in the form of a description of the story is happening. A person stands there and describes the story in a certain format. Okay, that is the recitational or the first stage of a Yakshagana. And scholars believe that this recitational stage, where the description of the story and the character is happening, was usually performed by women. And then in the second stage, we have the conversational or the Samvada stage, where we have two people being a part of the conversation. One is the Sutradhara, who is the main person to take forward the story, who is sometimes also part of the story. And then we have another character. And how is this story taken forward? It is through the conversation that happens between the two characters. So what has happened? This is what has happened. So what is told? This has been told. So what do you understand by this? I understand by this. So it is a sort of conversation that happens between two people about the story, about the plot, about the characters, where it has happened elsewhere and now it is being revealed. Alright, so this is the second stage. And then we have the dramatic stage. This is where the Samskrita Yakshagana actually came into picture. In the recitational stage and the conversational or the Samvada stage, we see a lot of tribal and folk Yakshaganas. Even today, you go to some of the remotest parts of a village, you see 2-3 people standing and say, what has happened? Yes, this has happened. Okay, this is how it is. So the conversational Samvada stage is still prevalent in the folk Yakshagana format. It is a format. It is a literary mode format and a performative format. So many of the tribal and the folk Yakshaganas might probably stopped there at the conversational or the Samvada stage. We see a dramatization of the entire story in the third stage, which is the dramatic stage, where there are multiple characters coming in the form of the character itself, and there is not just a conversation about a certain incident that has happened, but an entire complex story that is being narrated and performed. And for entertainment's sake, we also have a Vidushaka, which is a comedian, to just makes things light. Like, let's say, for example, you're watching a movie and a very serious scene is coming. All right, you're so sad looking at the heroine that are having a breakup, and suddenly you see a comedian coming into picture. Now, this is a very psychological technique of the actors and the mode of presentation that the audience never get tired of the story. Because when you're very sad for a longer period of time, you just get tired with your senses. So the comedy comes into picture to lighten your mood, to not make you feel tired about the story. And at the dramatic stage, you see the Vidushaka also being a part of the Yakshagana, and as a sign of the tribal or the folk communities being a part of the Yakshagana, you also see the Yerukalasani character being added very smartly and intelligently into the Yakshagana genre. What is a Yerukalasani? Yerukalasani is a fortune teller or a soothsayer who comes with a stick in her hand and with a basket, and she just looks at your palm and the lines and says, okay, this is predicted for your future. She is called as Yerukalasani. They belong to the tribal communities, okay? They just predict the future with their great six senses and the meditative powers that they have. All right. So these are the three stages: the recitational stage, the conversational or the Samvada stage, and the dramatic stage. And from the dramatic stage, you see the emergence of the Samskrita Yakshaganas coming into picture, which later paved way for the regional language Yakshaganas. All right. Now, until the Yakshaganas were only with the tribal and the folk communities, there was not of a very rigid structure to them. But when it got into the hands of the Samskritakaras or the scholars of the Samskrita texts, they have given it a certain structured format, of course taking a lot of raw material from the folk and the tribal Yakshaganas without any doubt. And then they have given it a certain structured format which is very much useful to showcase a very complex story of characters and an array of emotions. So what do we usually see in the Yakshaganas? Daruvu, Padyam, Dandakam, Dvipada, Vachanam, Eila, Hecharika. What is a Daruvu? The Daruvu word is related to the Dhrivaganam in Sanskritam from the Natya Shastra, and this is exactly the composition where characters are for the very first time introduced into the drama, like a Pravesha Daruvu. And not just for the entrance and their introduction, we also have many Daruvus for conversations, and we have some Daruvus where one character is scolding another character. We have some Daruvus where the character is finally exiting the drama. Their role in the drama has completed. So it's basically talking about the characterization, and the characters is Daruvu. And then we have Padyam. Padyam means these are verse of various kinds, such as Kandya Padyam, Kandardham, Sisa Padyam, etc. They have certain prosodic structure in the Yakshaganams. And then we have Dandakam. This is a recitative feature invoking a deity. Where you have to invoke a deity, you certainly recite some verses about the deity. That is called as Dandakam. And then we have Dvipada. Dvipada is basically a very long poem, all right? But it is called Dvipada, which means two padas, which means like a couplet, like two lines coming together and then 2 lines coming together as a long poem that is called as Dvipada. This is also one of the major feature of the Yakshaganams, the Samskrita Yakshaganams. And then we have Vachanam. What is Vachanam? It is a prose rendition by various characters. It's like a dialogue. Okay. So I don't tell it in the form of a poem with rhyming words ending, but as a sort of a dialogue that I say, which has a certain meter, and that is called as a Vachanam. And then we have Eila. Eila means this is a type of carol or catch often sung by a group, something which is repeated regularly at certain intervals that looks very soothing to the ears. That's called as Eila. This is also a feature of the Yakshagana. And then we have Hecharika. Hecharika means a song containing words of encouragement, precaution or intimation. Let's say a king is entering. Now a daruvu will be sung for the king to enter and introduce the king. Now before the king enters, a soldier will come and do a hecharika to all the audience ki all of you just be calm and sit straight. The king is entering now into the drama. So that is also a very prominent feature of the Yakshagana. So everyone is like, okay, the king is coming, and then the king comes with 4 more soldiers behind him with his, royal dignity and all, and a song on the king is sung in the form of a daruvu. So this is all very entertaining to see for the audience. They feel that an actual king has come and so much of glory is being sung by the king. So all these are very prominent features of the Yakshagana to make the storytelling very interesting. And Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu for more than 200 years have performed in the Yakshagana format. So it was until almost 1940s or 50s, say, that the Kuchipudi Yakshagana was very predominant in the Kuchipudi fraternity. It was only after that that slowly the solo repertoire has come into picture. Of course, today also, till date, Kuchipudi Yakshaganas, the traditional Kuchipudi Yakshaganas are being performed. No doubt about it. But I'm talking about back those days where only Kuchipudi Yakshaganas were performed before the advent of the solo repertoire. It was very prominent, and almost for 200 years, the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu were very well known for the Kuchipudi Yakshaganams that they performed. As I said, it was only in the 1960s that a new format called as Nritya Natakam or Nritya Rupakam was developed. Now we will learn about Nritya Natakam and Nritya Rupakam when we talk about the contributions of Vempati Chinnasatyam Master Garu much later in the course of this, the entire subject. And Andhra, apart from the Kuchipudi Yakshaganams, had many Yakshagana melams until 18th century. See, every time I was telling this, there were so many other dance drama traditions that were prevalent in Andhra. But only Kuchipudi could make it until the classical status and be prevalent today in the entire world. So, coming into picture is one thing, and becoming alive and surviving and coming, being a part of every century is a very, very challenging task. And Kuchipudi people were very much successful, both the traditional and the non-traditional families. When I say the Kuchipudi dancers, it is both the traditional and the non-traditional families who have immensely contributed for the success and the survival of the Kuchipudi dance. Now, what are some of the Yakshaganas that were prevalent in Andhra until 18th century? Were Vemulapalli Vari Melam, Dharmapuri Vari Melam, Tadipatri, Chukkaluri, Denuvukonda, Shanta, Narasingapalli Vari Melam. These are all the Yakshaganam melams that coexisted with the Kuchipudi Vari Melam. And as I said before, in Natya Mela, you predominantly see the male performers performing the entire Bhagavata Mela Natakam or the Yakshaganam. But it is among all these melas that existed, only Shantavari Melam had only women participation, which is just a small percentage of all the other melams that is there. But yes, women also participated before the 20th century in Yakshagana Melam with the Shantavari Melam. These were all prevalent in the Andhra region. As I said, after the fall of the Vijayanagara Empire, some families have migrated. We have seen this in the last lecture. The Nayaka kings have given them the Achyutapuram, and Melattur Bhagavata Mela Nataka was formed. This Melattur Bhagavata Mela Nataka also performs in the Yakshagana format. And the major texts to these Melattur Bhagavata Mela Nataka or Melattur Yakshaganas are given by Melattur Venkatarama Shastri, who was a contemporary of the great saint poet Tyagaraja Swami. Now, after the Nayakas came the Maratha rulers, and with the slowly decline of the Samskrita Yakshaganas and the Telugu Yakshaganas, there was a period when slowly it was somehow declining. The king themselves have, commissioned the Yakshaganas. They themselves have composed the Yakshaganas. For example, rulers, Maratha rulers like Sarfoji, Sahaji, Tulaji, Sarabhoji, they have written so many Yakshaganas, which were very much convenient for dance drama choreographies, all right. So that was the popularity of the Yakshagana genre in both the literary, music, dance and the theatre traditions of Andhra. Of course, the entire south of India, but especially the Andhra and the Tamil Nadu region. Now, by the time the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu decided to perform the Yakshagana genre, which is during the time of Yakshagana Pitamaha Shri Chinta Venkatramaya Garu, the Yakshagana was already popular in the tribal and the folk communities. As I said, that is where it all started. But when it came into the hands of the Brahmin class people, there was a certain structure that it has gotten. We have seen the structures also, so I'll not repeat about that. But the Kuchipudi Yakshaganas, as a Telugu Yakshaganas that I'm talking, we also performed Sanskrit Yakshaganas much before, let's say, 15th, 14th centuries. But when we are talking about the contemporary period, which is just before the independence, like say the 19th century or so, we see the Kuchipudi Yakshaganas were again reintroduced on a very major scale, but one Chinta Venkatramaya Garu and Shri Harimadhavaya Garu. These two people who belong to the Kuchipudi traditional families have started the Kuchipudi Yakshaganas and have made it a commercial success. And because of the efforts of Chinta Venkatramaya Garu and Harimadhavaya Garu, the Kuchipudi Yakshagana repertoire and the Kuchipudi dance drama tradition became more colorful and more vibrant, and a lot of commercial success was attached to that and became very popular. It became very easy to propagate the Kuchipudi Yakshagana genre. But one challenge with the Yakshaganas that in the initial stages that the Kuchipudi people faced were, the Yakshagana genre usually deals with a very complex story. Alright, so when it's a complex story, you need to have a lot of characters, lot of people working for it behind the stage, in front of the stage, lot of musicians, lot of properties. You see, because when it's a complex story, you need the help of so many things to make the story look very realistical to the audience, right? So a lot of complexities came into picture. Until then, the Kuchipudi people, even though they were traveling and performing stories of the Bhagavata Purana, it was not very complex as such. They were in small numbers moving and just performing Kelikas. Kalapa is with a few people. Alright, so the challenge of performing in a big group came as a very big hurdle. But of course, yes, a challenge is a challenge if you look at it in a certain way. But when you look at it positively, that's a good thing to move forward, right? So the Kuchipudi Yakshaganas, for them initially they had the challenge of performing it in a big group. So Chinta Venkatramaya Garu, what did he do? He pulled in people from the different families of Kuchipudi, made it into, let's say, an organization or a group, and named it Venkatrama Natya Mandali, and with many families. See, until then what happened? It was only Chintavari Melam, Pasumartivari Melam, Vedantam Vari Melam. So only certain people who belonged to a certain surname, they had a small Melam. Now Chinta family had a small Melam, Pasumarti had a small Melam. But small Melams will not work for Kuchipudi Yakshagana genre, right? Because it's a complex story. So what did he do? He made it into an organization, pulled in good actors from all the traditional families, made them work as a group, and this entire party moved from place to place, performing these complex stories all right, in the Yakshagana format. So this was a very new thing that happened. Of course, all through this, the Bhama Kalapam was always there with the Kuchipudi people because they are known for Bhama Kalapam, right? So anywhere they go, they used to perform the Yakshagana and people used to immediately ask, your Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu, please perform a Bhama Kalapam. And they used to perform a Bhama Kalapam, all right? So it is not that. But Kuchipudi Yakshagana genre was very new, challenging, and of course, very good thing happened, all right? What are the good things? Yes, of course, we'll see in the course of this lecture. But because it required a lot of efforts and challenges, what did Chinta Venkatramaya Garu do? He took a story which is already successful in the audience. The name was Prahalada Natakam, the story of Prahalada and Hiranyakashipu, and Narasimha Swami coming as an avatara to kill Hiranyakashipu to, save his young devotee Prahalada, who was the son of the demon king Hiranyakashipu. Now it required little less people. You only need a Narasimha, you only need a Prahalada, you only need a Hiranyakashipu, and you only need a Leelavati. Of course, you need 2 or 3 soldiers to stand beside the king. That's it. Hardly you need 5 to 6 people. Now, this is a very smart move that Chinta Venkatramaya Garu did. The story is very well known. You don't need 15 to 20 people to do this. So, what he did, he performed with his troupe the Prahalada Natakam for the very first time with less number of people. And you can't even imagine how successful and commercially viable it was. That gave a lot of strength to the Kuchipudi people. And it went on to a certain extent that until then the Kuchipudi Bhagavatamela Natakas were happening in the off season of the agriculture. But with the success of the Yakshagana genre, the agriculture as a main occupation went aside and the performance of the Yakshaganas became the major thing for them. All right. And it paved way for many, many Yakshaganas to come into picture, many new themes to come into picture, many new concepts to be written by many lyricists and composers, many new choreographies, many new themes. Now, that's wonderful to know. We'll learn it in the next sections when we talk about developments and innovations. And one thing that has to be understood is that, see, everyone will not have the same capability, right? You might be good in something, I might be good in something. But how will you put both of us on the same stage when we are not equals? Now, if people only put you on the stage, now that's an injustice to me. People will only put me on the stage, then that's an injustice to you. So what did Chinta Venkatramaya Garu has done, and of course, the people who have next come after him also, what they have done, you remember we were talking about the literatures that were there around the Kuchipudi village, like the Tarangams or the Padams, and of course the Ashtapadis of the Gita Govindam. So what did the Yakshagana people of Kuchipudi do is, there are certain people who are very majestic in their look, who suit the role of a king or a hero. Now there are certain people who don't suit the role of a king or a demon, maybe because of their physical personality, but are very good to dance. So what did they do? In between the stories, they have used these tarangams or the ashtapadis or shabdams as an interludes to entertain the audience, by which these artists will also get a chance to perform and showcase their talent. Isn't that wonderful? And there are also small children. The children characters were given to them. Majestic personalities, heroes and villains roles were given to them. Some personalities where they suit the women characters, women roles were given to them. All these are men at the end of the day. I'm just talking about the characters on stage. And there are some people who don't suit any of these but are very good in dance, very good in energy. So they were given these small pieces which also suits the main storyline. Let's say, for example, in Prahalada Natakam, Prahalada is singing a glory of Vishnu. Then suddenly a dancer comes as an interlude and does the Dashavatara Shabdam, where all the 10 incarnations of Vishnu are projected. You understand? So it is smartly fitted into the story. The dancer also has an opportunity to perform and they are not left aside. And the troupe also looks big and the Yakshagana format is also maintained. So it is not just hard work, but it is also a very smart work. And yes, as I said, because of Yakshaganams, two good things have happened. What is that? A new thought process has started in the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu. As to, yes, we can also experiment on certain themes, we can also experiment on certain stories, all right? And we can do this, and we can do short episodes of varying emotions. Now, for example, you take Bhama Kalapam. In Bhama Kalapam, from the beginning till the ending, it is only Shringara and Hasya. Now, at a certain point of time, of course, people enjoyed Bhama Kalapam, people still enjoy Bhama Kalapam. I'm not saying that. But you know, the same emotion being carried for all the hours of presentation, sometimes it's very tiring for the audience and the artists also to do. These Yakshaganams gave a new wave of emotions. Okay, Hasya, Shringara, Raudra, Veera, Bhayanaka, Bhibhatsa, war, everything that is there. Okay, you're having a war scene, you are having a love scene, you are having a scene where a mother is talking to a child. So more so, it was so entertaining to the audience. Now, I am talking about a period where cinema was not there. For the students who are watching this video now this will not look very unusual for you, because by the time you are born, movies were already at the peak. But I'm talking about a period where there were no cinema. Imagine audience sitting in the audience gallery, kings are coming, queens are coming, heroes are coming, love is happening, war is happening. Now that's a treat to the eyes, right? So all these new thought processes have started in the people and the artists, and it was such a huge commercial success that it gave a lot of strength to the Kuchipudi Bhagavata Melam people, or rather the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu, that they could experiment on so many stories in the Yakshagana format. And what is the traditional Kuchipudi Yakshagana repertoire that started under the supervision of Chinta Venkatramaya Garu? Prahlada Natakam by Vedala Tirunarayanacharyu, Usha Parinayam by Renta Chintala Chidambara Kavi, Mohini Rukmangada by Yenuguluri Paparaju, Ramanatakam by Tirunagaru Anantadasu, Gaya Natakam by Vallabhaneni Ramakrishnaya, Sesirekha Parinayam by Vallabhaneni Chaudhary, Rukmini Parinayam by Gudimella Tirumala Narasimhacharyulu, Harishchandriyam by V.T. Perumalaya. So these are the traditional Yakshaganam repertoire that we have. We will see about the story plot of these in the next coming lectures, when we talk about Chinta Venkatramaya Garu and his contributions to the Kuchipudi Yakshaganam. Now, almost 50 years, the Kuchipudi Yakshaganams were very popular among the masses. Very popular. Both the classes and the masses. I shouldn't just mention masses. Both the classes and the masses. But slowly what happens, after a period of time, you get bored with certain things. Why? Because, you know, same actors were doing all the roles. People who were doing the heroine were only doing the heroine, and same emotions. Now, beginning everything looks very happy and rosy, all right. After 50 years, you know, of course, the movie has also come into picture. People found out new ways of entertainment, and after a certain period of time, no new themes were coming, no new stories were being experimented or written, and you know, it sort of became a little monotonous with the audience and also the actors, and you know, the people who were called the good actors, they became very commercial. The thing of you know, being a good actor came into picture, so demands became more. And a very important thing is that yes, the cinema has also come into picture, and entertainment modes have changed, and people wanted new innovations, because you know, contemporary dancers like Uday Shankar and Ram Gopal, they were experimenting new things in Indian dance format, and their influence on the young minds of those times were too much. So a slow decline of these Kuchipudi Yakshaganams after 50 years we see. And during that time, when we see the decline of the Yakshaganas, we see the emergence of Vedantam Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu, who belongs to the traditional Kuchipudi families, who started a new experiment of teaching outside students the Yakshaganams, because they wanted new actors. They wanted new actors to take on the roles. And not just that, he also taught the non-traditional dancers small excerpts of these Yakshaganams as solo pieces, because at that time solo pieces were being sold out more, which is exactly just before the independence or immediately after the independence. So these small pieces as excerpts from the Yakshaganas were being taken and taught as solo items, and these solo items were being performed by the dancers. So these were the new experiments that were happening. We'll discuss that about more when we talk about Vedanta and Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu. And yes, as I said before, because of this slow decline, many of the youngsters from the traditional Kuchipudi families were moving out of the village and joining the cinema in the Madras, where they could see more of financial stability and more of exposure to the outside world. Now this was also hampering the Kuchipudi Yakshaganas. Alright, and film choreographies became more, so new experimentation on the techniques of dance choreography became more, and new movements that would suit the female body have become more, and slowly female dancers also slowly started getting into the Kuchipudi arena, and women came into picture, and Kuchipudi guru started teaching women, and then the rest is history that we will discuss in the next chapter. So this is how the Yakshagana started in the Kuchipudi genre, which became a huge commercial success. Until we meet in the next lecture, thank you. Namaskaram.